Oh man,
I've hit record already. What a nightmare.
I know. If you can't steer away from car crashes, anyone watching that would have been like, "Oh my God, how many attempts?" I don't think I've ever done that. Like,
No, I've got no idea what's going on. My internet's been working all day and it's still saying it is, but then it just kept knocking me out of the live. And
well, let me just take responsibility for it because it's likely me. It's likely, it's highly likely it's me. Yeah.
anyway, let's get into it. What were we
Yeah.
saying?
No, we were just beginning to talk about the incessant chatter around body image, reminders of you are a worthless piece of shit. By the way, don't you want to get into shape and fix your mental health and every insecurity you feel about yourself? In a
Yeah,
nutshell.
yeah. And I've seen so many coaches saying if you finally want to feel confident walking down the beach without your top on and getting into your swimwear this summer, then, join my fat loss transformation program. And it's all just lies. We know it is. Because when people are only focusing on their physical appearance as a means to an end, as a way to, like you said, cure all the problems they've got in their life, it isn't going to be the fix that they're looking for. And it's just going to leave them potentially with further disordered eating habits, a worsened body image, because that's what the research shows us, that the more people focus on their physical appearance over and above anything else, their body image actually worsens over time. And then when they achieve this summer physique, they're going to end up, most of the people that end up in that position are going to be on holiday, extremely preoccupied by food, over-analyzing everything that goes in the mouth, struggling with digestive problems, potentially having episodes of binge eating, and then following with guilt and shame, which who wants that on holiday? Like, nobody.
Well, it becomes a contradiction in terms, I find, and that is the difference. We've spoken about this many times between supporting people with body composition goals and actively promoting it. And I think in one instance, the idea of actively promoting it, I think it is best intentioned, it is well intentioned from the majority of people, because I've referenced it many times. I think there are just trainers that don't know any better, so they follow the status quo. I did exactly
Yeah,
that.
but that's because of the place that they're at themselves and where you were at that time, because I've been there as well.
Yeah. And that is monkey see, monkey do. But then I
Yeah.
think there's also an evolution of coaching, and more coaches are aware of the ills associated with this kind of promotion and what the sort of messaging that it sends out there and how it makes people feel insecure about themselves. And they choose not to do better. So I do think there's a difference between supporting people with body composition goals and actively promoting it, because it is a complete contradiction in terms, because you and I, we both work with people towards bettering their relationship with food, better relationship with themselves, their body image. And that process actively is to take your attention away from your body, to take
Mhm.
your attention away from meticulously tracking every morsel of food and being neurotic about everything involved in that process. Whereas fat loss in its entirety as a singular focus, you're focusing on scale, you're focusing on metrics getting smaller, you're focusing on body fat loss, you're focusing on transformation pictures. So that inherently brings focus back to the body. So that there are two total odds. Now, if you're supporting people with body composition goals, I think you can give a varying level of other conscious tangibles you look at. So performance in the gym, it may be like something fitness related, doing a triathlon or running a 5K in a certain amount of time. There are other facets of life that you can focus on. But if you're solely focused on fat loss, especially with men, because it tends to be more linear, as they lose weight, they lose body fat. For women, obviously, it's a little bit more complex, but all that does is draw attention back to the body. So it's a complete contradiction in terms, which I find really frustrating.
Yeah. And it's making people think that their body is the problem and always was the problem, and then reaffirming that when they're jumping from program to program. And I think, we neither of us are against fat loss. Like, we both support clients with fat loss goals. But when it comes to these quick fix diets for summer, it's all prescriptive. It's follow this meal plan, track this number of calories, do these 4 workouts every week, do this set amount of cardio. And none of that stuff creates long-term behavior change. It's not doing that deeper work for people to understand why they can't stay in a routine with nourishing foods. They can't stay in a routine with exercise unless they're paying a coach. They can't do these things, or they can't do them consistently enough to then be in a body where they feel comfortable and happy and content most of the time, because we're never going to feel great all of the time. And unless coaches are supporting people with that deeper work, you're just going to end up having people continuing on that hamster wheel of jumping on a 6-week tread, losing weight. They stop working with the coach because they're in the body, and they say to themselves, oh, this time it'll be different. This time I won't binge eat after. This time I'll maintain the results. This time I'll do the work on my food relationship after. But then the diet that they've just gone through has then worsened their body image, worsened the way they feel about food, enhanced all of the underlying issues that were already there. And it's removing them further away from the problems that they're facing and the reasons that they weren't where they want to be in the first place, which, you know, these sorts of coaches that are constantly doing these group programs again and again and again are just leaving people trapped within that cycle. But then I think a lot of coaches don't know how to do that deeper work. They don't know how to support clients with that stuff because they aren't even doing that for themselves. Like, they haven't done that work. They are probably the sort of coach that's overly focused on their own physique over and above a lot of other things in life. So it's like you said, monkey see, monkey do, just regurgitating what they know.
Mm.
Because, you know, when you do a PT qualification, which most online coaches, that is as far as their qualifications go, that doesn't teach you anything about human behavior and behavior change and working with people who are really struggling with all of this stuff. It does just teach you how to get somebody from A to B with fat loss with a prescriptive plan.
Mm. I think it's, when someone's 30 plus years of perpetual dieting, being in this slump, associating all their self-worth, their self-esteem to how they look and their scale weight all of the time, is fat loss is the plaster. It's the thing that they naturally default to every time they want to make themselves feel better, even if it's only for a short period. But exactly as you said, it's human behavior change, and that's so much deeper. All of these, wired thoughts, feelings, beliefs about themselves, or even the root cause of why they may be emotionally eating or they might be binge eating, all these other things, even if they were protective mechanisms at one point in time, they no longer serve them, but they're not doing that introspective work. And that's not their fault, because what we do as a fitness industry is we evangelize fat loss as the be all and end all without highlighting not only all the other health attributes that you can get from strength training, exercising, etc., as singularly the best thing you can do to reduce all-round mortality risk. Talking like cardiovascular disease, reducing risk of type 2 diabetes, bone health, blood lipid profiles, immeasurable things to your mental health. We don't glorify those the same as we do body composition. And I think when people are looking at longer term behavior change, it is getting to the root cause of why they behave the way they do, why they think the way they do, why they resort to emotionally eating to soothe themselves, and how they can better manage their environment, all these other things, and probably beside the point of what we'll get into today, but childhood trauma and coping strategies from being a much younger person, and those things coming up as protective things. It's getting really curious and attuned with why they're there in the first place. And it's the step before the step before. And, setting calorie brackets or calorie counting and arbitrary numbers to do your steps towards, or, whatever it may be, is all a plaster. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not the wound. And we really need to address the wound, because I do have compassion for these people. I do have empathy, because it's really difficult, I think, especially this time of year, with that incessant noise from people where you're being told like this is the solution to all, is to actually, okay, like I've done 10 diets like this every year, I'm in the same position, to have the courage to step back and go, is my relationship with food, and actually maybe this summer I do take a step back, and fat loss isn't the goal. Is really getting to the root cause of what influences these behaviors, why I'm in these patterns, and why I can't, nothing sticks.
That gave me goosebumps when you said that, because I literally was just thinking about every potential new client call that I have when somebody is like, I know there's more to life than being stuck in that cycle, and the emotional eating, the binge eating, the over restriction, the over emphasis on my physical appearance. And they're like, I don't know what that looks like, but I want to find out. And that is just everything, because that takes so much strength and so much courage to be able to do and to have that realization that actually you are just keeping yourself trapped by going for these sorts of things over and over again. But I think we started to, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but a new client messaged me either last week or the week before and told me that she was really grateful that I would support her and not insist that she took body like photos, like comparison photos. Because all of our clients have that choice. And if they do ever take them, it's then up to them whether they send them to us or if they want to keep them private, and they would never ever be shared on social media because it's just not something that me and Emma think is okay. But she had worked with a coach last summer and lost a load of weight on one of these programs and then struggled massively with binge eating after the program had finished. She'd reached out to this coach and asked for her support, to have some support after the diet to be able to deal with what she was experiencing. And this coach, she didn't actually tell me what came of that conversation. But then this year, when that same coach is now promoting her next summer shred package, she's using this woman's fat loss transformation program photo, the comparison photo. This woman now weighs 15 kilos heavier than she did last summer. So she's now bigger than she was in the before photo last summer, which again, we see that time and time again, that meme that goes around all the time of, oh, I wish I was as fat as I thought I was 5 years ago. And that it's just devastating that people genuinely think that. And it's now becoming something that we joke about in society because there's that meme going around where you weren't ever fat initially. And now because of all these fad diets, because of all these restrictions and obsessive protocols that people are putting themselves through, every single time they're moving further and further away long term from where they want to be and causing more issues. So yeah, this woman's photo was then being used to promote this year's Summer Shred Challenge when she knows she's heavier than she was in the starting photo on that transformation. And she has struggled with binge eating, emotional eating, huge amounts of food preoccupation, food guilt, secret eating. She'd even struggled with a period of night eating, which not enough, I mean, I don't talk about it enough, but getting up and eating in the middle of the night because she's fucking starving, because her hunger and satiety hormones are that dysregulated from the 1,100 calories a day that she was on. I know. And now to see that photo where, it's being glorified is just really, really painful and difficult for her. And, if people are giving coaches photos, those photos are going to be used again and again and again, regardless of what happens, So yeah, I think that's something that people really need to think about, how they would feel about those photos being shared, regardless of their current health status, regardless of their current weight, regardless of even, if they even give a shit about fat loss or body composition at the moment. That's something people really need to take into consideration with these sorts of things as well.
I think we're all guilty, or we have been in the past at least, but we feed into all these reinforcing ideas that is somehow better, that deems someone a better human because they have lost weight, because there's so much social reinforcement and applause that come with that. And I think everyone on some level wants to be seen, heard, understood. And if you spend some of your life either being visible when you don't want to be visible to the point of ridicule or being called names, etc., to feeling entirely invisible, this gives you some positive attention for the first time. So I totally understand that when people go through these processes, it feels great. Like having people compliment you, especially if you've never really been subjected to that, is lovely. It is. But then if you're in this perpetual loop of only getting reinforcement from that, I think it's so much more important for people to see their worth and understand their value outside of that, which is when we use those comparison images, not only are we comparing ourselves to everyone else around us, but we're comparing ourselves to past versions of ourselves, which bodies change over time. I'm sure you have over the years. I've had people give me the example, if I want to be the same weight as I was when I was 18, and they're like in their 40s. You're like, well, bodies change. It's not that,
It's
and
supposed to.
this comes with managing expectations, right? But because we're in this day and age of instant gratification, Amazon Prime, is I don't think it's hard to think longer term. It's hard to think about the bigger picture because the hardest pitch I find with these kind of things and us having these conversations is that they work. Like those short-term diets, they work. And people know that, but they're not thinking about the detriments to their health longer term because
Mhm.
everyone has this thought in mind that this will be my last one, then I'll look at my relationship with food. This will be my
Yeah.
last one. And before you know it, you're 5, 6, 7, however many times down the line, it's maybe a process you go through before every holiday. And you know that alleviates some of that unease you feel about yourself. You know it gives you that momentary confidence. You feel better about yourself. So it's almost counterintuitive to people, I think, to think, why wouldn't I do that just to get the ball rolling? And then I can reevaluate my relationship with food. But the bigger picture being, this is an issue. Let's resolve that first. And again, it takes courage. It's really difficult to step away from something you know, which is going to provide some momentary soothing, because some people are so unhappy in the skin that they're in, is they just want to get away from that emotion. And if
Yeah.
it means restricting, following some rigidity over a 6, 8, 10, whatever many weeks it is, to see that till the end, it's always outcome focused. And you and I both know when it comes to behavior change, we're looking at sometimes investing in health behaviors that don't have an outcome. Not always going for a walk because it contributes to your step count, but bloody nice weather. I like walking, like it gives me some good headspace. I like being out in the sunshine, adding layers of value as to why you do these things. You're a healthful individual. That's why you eat your fruits and veggies. You don't eat loads of veggies to, pile up on low calorie, high volume as food because you're always chasing this ridiculous deficit. And again, these aren't the points of consideration I don't are in mind for people. And that's not their fault. It's because they're not spoken about. Because
Yeah.
from a coaching perspective, I do think we've got an ethical responsibility to have these conversations with people. And then if they then decide after that they do want to do something short term, it's at least from an informed choice point of view. I think
Mhm.
informed choice is the big thing here because people aren't informed because all they've had drummed down to them is essentially a mathematical equation: calories in, calories out, do more, eat less.
But don't you think that because of our lifestyles the way that they are, because so many people are living in that fight or flight mode, such a highly stressed state, decision fatigue is so high, it can feel near impossible with so much conflicting information in the fitness industry, in the nutrition world, everybody shouting about loads of different things from all different angles. For so many people, they're like, oh, I just want somebody to tell me what to do. I just want somebody to make it simple. I just want somebody to give me a meal plan or an exact number of calories or tell me exactly what to train and when, because people's capacity is getting lower and lower and less as the volume on everything turns up and people are running around more and more like headless chickens without actually giving themselves the chance to think and process things. And then also when people are in that highly stressed state and they are, potentially struggling with mental health, anxiety, like lower mood and all these things, it's then so easy to think that, and I know this to be true for me many years ago when I did struggle with anorexia and then binge eating and bulimia, if I could shift my focus to my body, that gave me something to drown out a lot of the other background noise. It was like if my body's the problem and I'm focusing on that and I'm taking off what I need to do every day to become smaller, it then numbs a lot of the painful emotions and feelings that I'm experiencing. Because, like you said, it's a plaster over the wound, and I wasn't ready to go into that wound, get the salt out, make it more painful short term, get the salt out. You know what I mean? Like make the wound more painful because you've got to open it up. I wasn't ready to do that work. I didn't know how to, I didn't know where to start. So again, for me, thinking, yeah, if I focus on my body, if I become smaller, if I get more validation and more attention, that gives us the little boost of dopamine in the moment. And like you were saying before, physical transformations are glorified over and above anything else. Like somebody could, finally be able to start a family after years of struggling to conceive, set up a new business, find a cure for cancer, and then the next post down is a fat loss photo, and that will receive more validation and praise than anybody achieving incredible things in life. which is really, really sad. And actually, I used to get, and I know you'll be able to relate to this when you were in like physique sports, I used to get so much attention, so much praise, people literally begging to know what I was doing to be walking around with abs. And, you know, I never said to anybody, I do now, but I would have never said, oh, I'm starving myself and doing hours of cardio every day. And I'm highly preoccupied by food and I can't have a social occasion or eat a meal that somebody else has cooked, because all that praise and validation and reinforcement just leaves people trapped, because then it makes them think, well, if my body does change, or if I decide to do this deeper work and I do gain some weight, or I can't diet successfully or get lean like I've done in the past, then where am I going to get those feelings and that sort of instant gratification from? So it's so difficult.
And that's such an incredibly valuable conversation to have, I think. Just the fact that you're airing difficulties, because I experienced much the same. But I think when I came into the industry, people that seemingly got in shape in air quotations or walked around with single digit body fat, they never spoke about these things. They didn't talk about the sacrifices involved. They didn't talk about struggles themselves. So I think I can only attest for myself because my experiences, but I suspect many others experience it as well, is when you're not subjected to these kind of conversations, or you're not overhearing these kind of things being discussed like you and I now, is that you think you're entirely alone, that for you to maintain a smaller body, you've got to go to the lengths that others don't have to. And you just accept that as a norm and something you perhaps feel like you can't share with others because there are no other conversations about it. And I think at that time I could have really done with these conversations, just the necessary conversation about how difficult it is to maintain that level and the detriments to your personal life, your professional life, because you and I both know people that this is essentially their job, especially with the emergence of influencers. You
Mm,
mentioned a really valuable point around control variables, which I think we should kind of discuss a bit more there as well, because I think that's so valid. With people feel like their lives are out of control, they cling on to control variables. And for a lot of people in our industry, especially those walking around with single digit body fat levels, is their control variables, which we praise them for it, for being so disciplined, being so motivated, all these other things, is that is possibly them coping. Possibly they are in the midst of and not even recognize it themselves. And I think the pandemic was a perfect reflection of that. How
yeah.
many people were for the first time talking about their mental health when the gym was removed from them because they're training and meticulously tracking every morsel of food that enters their mouth and putting everything into Tupperware? That's a control variable. So when the world feels out of control and I feel anxious, what can I control? And it does provide the same soothing, I think, the same on inverse, the same way people kind of resort to emotional eating to get away from that momentary pain because it's difficult. It's the hardest pitch is for people. This is possibly going to get a lot harder before it's going to get better. I think the phrasing around leaning into your pain is, obviously, I think that's best done with professional guidance sometimes because no one wants to lean into pain, but sometimes wounds have to be revisited. But the other side of that is as well, you and I both know there are people that are claiming to help others in this space that are still in the midst of their own shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's again, you can't. I don't believe you can help someone when you're in the midst of your own struggles. That's not to say no one has lapses and no one struggles any of the time, but if you're in your eating disorder, you shouldn't be working with people with eating disorders.
No. And it's so clear to see from the stuff that different coaches put out, like who is still fighting those battles themselves. And like you said, everybody is going to have difficult moments from time to time. Like that's a completely normal part of being human. But when there's so many people in the fitness industry that are feeling that pressure themselves to look a certain way, to maintain a certain sort of physique at a detriment to other areas of their life. The whole is your body your business card narrative that I know we've spoke about loads, like you've got to walk the walk, when people don't realize, coaches don't realize that they're working with lifestyle clients who have families and careers and hobbies and friends, and they want to be able to socialize. So actually walking the walk is being able to go out and have fucking, I don't know, a few slices of pizza and a couple of cocktails without scanning it and putting it in my fitness pal. It's being able to miss a gym session if your body is beaten up and you're feeling exhausted and not being filled with anxiety. And also, yeah, it's about parenting yourself and, you know, eating your fruit and veg and doing the gym sessions when you can't be asked. Like, it's the balance of all those things. But that's what walking the walk is. If you are a coach that works with lifestyle clients, and I don't know about you, but I know we've both been in leaner bodies like years ago and received lots of validation and had our own issues with food and body image. But now that I've worked through all of that stuff and I am walking the walk in the way that, you know, practicing what I preach, I find it so easy now to maintain a physique where I'm healthy, happy, comfortable, content, and my weight isn't going up and down like 10 kilos either side. Like, you know, yes, weight fluctuates and that's completely normal and healthy, but so many people think, oh, if I do this work, I'll gain weight, I'll stay fat, or I'll get fatter. And actually, the research shows us people who have a healthy relationship with food, have a healthy body image, and are actually in that place where they can socialize freely and, you know, yeah, they've got balance, however that looks like for them as an individual. Those people maintain a lower BMI than people that are stuck in this cycle. So I don't know if, I mean, I'm pretty sure that that's true for you as well.
I mean, I think that's a testament to doing the step before again, is because you're in that
Yeah.
cycle of shoots and getting in a leaner body. It's only once you stepped away and you've done all that other groundwork, is actually now you find yourself in a position where you're ultimately fulfilled, content, and happy with where things are because you can maintain that. But again, that's the bit that takes courage, right? And you're many of the people that come to us, they think it's the process of learning something new, but actually it's unlearning the thoughts and processes that are involved, I think, which are more important. And that's hard. That's hard when you've had that instilled from when you're, you know, teeny tiny, that your scale weight is a definitive measure of who you are as a human and whether you're worth talking to, like how attractive you are. That's important to everyone. And that is important to some people. But one of the struggles I find with fitness professionals, especially, is I refer to it as like a self-imposed prison because they're always in this process of their body being their business card, which
Mm.
doesn't really lend itself to, as you say, the lifestyle clients they work with, but also the lifestyle they're likely to step into because as people mature, they have more responsibilities, they have less time to focus on their bodies, unless that is them. So people will always judge you based on your body if all you use is your body to communicate your message. And if you've
Yeah.
got something valuable to say, by reducing that to just your appearances, you can't really expect people to see beyond that. And
Mhm.
I find people that are trying to move away from that kind of physique side and help more lifestyle based people is they're still in that perpetual loop of thirst trap Thursday or throwback Thursday. And this was me in my competing days. And what it does is just evangelizes that aspect of themselves in some way. So it's unhelpful to them and it's unhelpful to the audience
Yeah.
because what you'll constantly do is you'll get applause and praise for that.
It's hard though, isn't it? Like you almost have to go through that shift yourself and work through it to get to that place. And again, I know this to be true. Like I go back maybe 2 years and I would have shared like progress photos of my own on social media. And it is difficult because then people are like, oh my God, well, you're in great shape and you've done this, so you know what you're doing, and I want to work with you. And I think as coaches, it's about educating people and showing support and ideas of the things that we do help our clients with, but having the confidence and the belief in your own abilities as a coach to do that away from your physique, you know, to explain to people that actually, yeah, of course, you can have body composition goals, you can be proud of your body. Like I took a photo in the gym the other day and I was like, fucking hell, I look great. Like I really want to post that. And then I'm like, I
So
need,
humble, Sophia,
I
so
need,
humble.
but I'm not, you know, I'm not,
Fucking amazing.
I look 10 out of 10. No, I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that I do like my body and I do like my physique. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there is something wrong with, you know, it wouldn't sit right for me to prioritize that over and above other areas of my life. And I think I really do think we can have it all when it comes to these things. Um, but as a coach, that side of it is very, very important. I think because I'm just conscious that we've only got like 10 minutes left till I need
That's right.
to.
Can I just add a point before you move on from that? Because I think there's such a valuable distinction there, is that there's a difference between existing in your body and it just being your body to documenting your body for a sales pitch. So you
Yeah,
taking a selfie in the gym is very different to you saying, if you want to look like me, this is what you need to do, invest in my coaching. And I think sometimes when people do their social media posts, it's a picture of them maybe with their abs out, and it's, if I was to lose fat, this is what I would do. Well, okay, well that essentially is promoting your body to sell your product to a certain degree.
yeah, 100%, 100%. If you were to go back, I've got my personal page and my business page. Well, I created my business page separate to my personal one because if you scroll back on my personal one to like 8, 9 years ago, oh my God, all I did was take photos in the gym.
Mhm.
All I did was take photos of being lean or the food I was eating. And I look back on it now, and at the time, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it at the time. But now I'm like, there's just so much more to life
And it's
than
difficult. The other
that.
difficult thing with that is I do 100% get the allure. Like I still train regularly. I still value my training. I still occasionally I'm in the gym and I'm like, okay, I could do some easy content now for just film a video of me lifting. And I know the algorithm will reward me for that because I know it's a visual based platform. And that's essentially what a lot of people want to see. So it actually takes, I feel, concerted effort to go, I'm not going to post that simply for the response I know it's going to get. I'm only going
Yeah,
to post valuable stuff because
it's so hard.
it is, because again, you're rewarded for it. So, as much as we say about influencers and booty pictures and here's my arm workout with an upshot of my ass crack, or, whatever it may be, that is rewarded. And, people will give, I think it's one of those, if it fits your narrative conversations, like people will say, oh, yeah, I post that to get more attention on my content. But again, it just reduces your content to just something visual based.
Yeah.
And you've got to be at ease with what you put out. I'm not telling people are right or wrong here. I think this is just me overly stating what I'm comfortable with and what I think helpful. And I think sometimes there are reasons people give themselves for posting that sort of content, which, if they were to be entirely honest with themselves, is more about external validation, their own ego, easing their own insecurities, than it is actually about the value, in air quotations, or the help they think it's giving to people.
But then I guess as well, the coaches that post that sort of stuff, if they are physique coaches and fat loss coaches, that makes sense because it's going to bring in those sorts of clients, isn't it?
It
If that's
is.
what they're doing.
But then I think it's having an awareness of who you can and you can't help. And I'm not
Mm.
I'm not poo-pooing that is someone's niche, but you can't be a physique competitive bodybuilder and then
And support food relationship and body image.
you can't,
No.
it's a complete contradiction. Is eh, everything about that process, whether it's your body composition focused or your physique focused, everything about that process draws attention to the body. So it's a total contradiction to say, and you support body image and relationship with food.
Yeah, it is. So what do we think then? People that are sort of tempted by the quick fix, summer diets, the shred programs, what do we think they can do? Because everybody is entitled, everybody has autonomy over their own body and can choose to diet for summer. So many of my clients are doing that right now. But what do you think people listening can do who are like, right, yeah, I do want to step away from that sort of shit, but I still have physique goals as well?
Mm. I think there's some acceptance and almost the introspective work needs to be done is, can I take some pause? Can I step back? Can I reevaluate my values? Can I look at the broader picture so I don't miss the wood for the trees? I know this is going to alleviate some of the discomfort that I feel right now, but am I really struggling with my relationship with food? And this isn't to ward people off of fat loss programs. Depending on where you are. For some people, they've got, within their realms of understanding, they've got a perfectly acceptable relationship with food. But if you are a perpetual dieter and you have been, I don't know, like 15, 20 years, whatever it is, down the line, and you feel like everything you try is just not working, it's really difficult to convince yourself to step back but that might be the best thing for you. And I think that's where the conversation of self-compassion comes in, because it's contributing to the bigger picture. So it's almost not being too empathetic to yourself, and that, okay, well, I just need to fix these horrible feelings I have for myself now. That's giving yourself over to empathy. Whereas self-compassion, I think, is more objective. It's okay, I know that's going to make me feel better short term, but actually, what's going to make me feel good longer term? What's going to contribute towards a fuller life?
Yes, I love that. That is what I was thinking as well, of like, instead of it being dieting quickly for summer, dieting, and then after that, it's going to be dieting quickly for what comes after summer. Is it
Mm.
Christmas? Is there anything people would diet for in between?
Oh, I think people go on holiday around that. It's normally for a distinct reason, isn't it? Whether it's like a, I don't know, like an October holiday, kids' holiday, or whether it's
Yeah. And then
holiday,
it's Christmas,
and
then
then it's
it's New Year
January.
diets,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, summer bodies are made in winter.
And
Oh God.
coincidentally, it's always the same people that always have something to sell you and always have something to remind you of when those occasions come up. Whereas I think just you and I, we work with people that are looking at the longer term, maybe. So, I appreciate
Yeah.
this isn't for everyone. I don't prefer
No.
I have all the answers for everyone, but I think realistically, and if people were honest with themselves, because that's where it comes from, doesn't it? That
Mm.
self-awareness and being honest with yourself. What do you need?
Yeah. And it is thinking about that longer term. It's thinking, I am worthy and deserving of being in a body that I know I am looking after and respecting and caring for most of the time. Because again, we're never going to be able to do that all of the time because that's not realistic. But instead of bouncing from diet to diet, how can I get to a place where the majority of the time I feel great? The majority of the time I'm fueling my body, I'm looking after myself, I'm moving my body, I'm prioritizing my overall well-being and my mental health. But then I can go for a slice of cake with my kids, or I can go out for a bottomless brunch and it doesn't cause all of this anxiety and guilt. So I have that overall balance and a healthy life overall alongside maintaining a body where I'm comfortable most of the time. That's what people need to be thinking. And actually, I think so many people are put off with the cost of investing in a one-to-one coach. Because let's be honest, can anybody get that sort of support on a group program?
No,
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 no.
no, they can't. Absolutely not. And even if they're on like a continual process of that, they're always going to be reliant on relatively cookie cutter exercise plans to a certain degree, and just a broad range of calorie targets or macros or whatever it may be. But
You aren't going to have somebody getting deep down into that wound on a group program because it's not personal, it's not one-to-one.
it's not pragmatic. I don't want to say that's a slight on all group training programs, because for some people they just want a little bit of accountability. They don't want to do that other work.
And
Or
that's all they need, maybe,
yeah,
for some people.
yeah, they
Yeah.
just need almost like novelty workouts. It's the novelty of being in a group, having community, having access to that. Lower barrier to entry. I think that's absolutely fine, and I'm always at ease with how things are marketed. So if you're marketing a group training program, that's exactly that. You might get a check-in every other week, and the price and investment should reflect that. But if you're an
Yeah.
individual who's sick and tired of being in this perpetual loop of not being able to change behavior for longer term, is that I'm not going to convince anyone they need to do anything. But I just think that, again, it's focus on the bigger picture. And are you driven by self-respect and self-improvement, or are you just constantly trying to hate your body into change? Because
Mhm.
that's never going to be a motivator long term, because hating your body into change is always going to be externally driven. Whereas if you're driving that change through self-respect and self-care, then that's always going to be something that's internally driven. And much like we were saying earlier in the conversation, is for some of those behaviors to stick around longer term, is you need to add layers of value to them. So you need to be able to go out and enjoy a walk, not because it contributes to your step count, but just because that's a nice thing to do. You know, you need to get a nice plethora of fruit and veg in your diet, because it makes you feel good as well. You need to be adequately hydrated, not because you're doing it for body composition goals, but because when you're hydrated, your mood's better. Like all of these other things, all these
Mhm.
other reasons why we do these things that aren't just because they help our body shrink, basically.
Yeah, because all you're doing then, if you're shrinking your body, is shrinking your overall quality of life. I think that is a really good place for us to leave it, isn't it? What was that? Mic drop?
Yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
was obvious, no? I'm not too old for that, am I? Am I too
You're
old?
not too old.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 38 is too old, but it just looked like you were like having,
Pow.
yeah,
Pow. Well, look, yeah.
I wasn't sure what you were doing.
Inappropriate. I think, yeah, like uh, past 35, I think the more innuendos of like men that just drop innuendos in everywhere just gets a bit creepy. It's not funny anymore.
Do you
Like
not,
that's what
what, you
she
think it was
said.
funny before?
Well, I think you can get away with it when you're younger, but you can get away with it because, well, you're more immature, so you find it funnier anyway. But you can almost get away with it more audience wise. I think it just,
Yeah.
the older you get, it creepier it gets.
It depends because men are either creepy or not.
Oh,
You're,
really?
yeah, you're definitely not creepy. I wouldn't be friends with you if you were creepy.
Thanks. The
But
best
yeah, men,
compliment I've had all day. You're not creepy.
just because it's your birthday, damn, you are not creepy. But no, men are either creepy or not. And do you know what I am realizing more and more? In general, younger men, so men like our age and younger, aren't creepy. It is older men.
Mm,
That's where you've got the association with. But and again, this is kind of going off topic, but in the gym, when I see men being creepy, it's men in their 50s, 60s that are just stood there like drooling at girls, and it's absolutely vile.
really
It's not
narcissistic.
it's not younger, because younger men now are so, a lot of them, I mean, there will be some, of course, but they're so conscious of trying not to be like that.
Mm.
Um,
I
but
think as
anyway,
I've got older, that's always been a concern of mine because I think because job as well. Like, I'm always cautious about unsolicited advice, but like helping anyone, like male or female, is that I'm like when I can see someone struggling, I have to actively put a thought in my head and think, do they want my help or probably not? So I actually refrain from helping people sometimes because I don't want to be seen as just a creepy guy offering advice.
you don't need to worry about that. You're not creepy.
Thanks.
I need to shoot on that
Yeah,
note before we go off on a totally different tangent.
I'm glad we made that
Um,
happen anyway.
but if
Eventually.
anybody's got any questions or comments on the back of anything that we've chatted about, then please send either of us a message. And I'm just glad that we managed to get this recorded in some way. And yeah, we'll speak to you all soon.
Bye.